All right, today we're diving into something totally different. We're talking about an AI that isn't built to just spit out answers. Nope, this one's designed to think with you. And it's called Specula.
So let's just jump right in. I mean, we're all getting pretty comfortable with AI, right? It writes our emails, generates these incredible images in seconds. But what if we pointed that power at something deeper? What if we used it to help us wrestle with the really tough stuff, like our own ethics?
And this really gets to the heart of it. Most people think of AI as this kind of oracle, right? You ask it a question, it gives you the right answer. It's like an all-knowing judge. Specula, it completely flips that on its head. It's not a judge, it's a reasoning partner. The whole point is to spark your thinking, to help you reason better, not to do the thinking for you.
Okay, so this leads us to the big idea behind this whole project. They intentionally built an AI that just won't give you the answer.
So, what is Specula exactly? Well, it's an open and accessible AI, and its name is a huge hint. Speculum is Latin for mirror, and that's exactly what it does. Its whole job is to be a mirror for our own thoughts when we're stuck on a tough moral problem. It doesn't decide, it reflects.
All right, now that we've got that foundation, let's properly meet this new kind of thinking partner.
This quote, it just says everything, doesn't it? The core idea is so simple, but it's also kind of revolutionary. We can't just hand over our conscience to an AI. That's not the goal. But what we can do is ask it to help us reason better. It's all about sharpening our own moral compass, not just outsourcing it to a machine.
But hang on. How does an AI even reason about something as complex as ethics? It's not just pulling ideas out of thin air. Its logic is actually built on a really clear, transparent moral compass, what its creators call an ethical charter.
And we're not talking about some vague mission statement here. This moral compass is a real document. It's called the Carta Ethica, that's Italian for ethical charter. And it all comes down to this number, 6. Its entire thinking process is built on just 6 core, totally transparent articles.
So this charter, the Carta Etica, it's basically the AI's rule book, and it's all out in the open. For example, it says that human dignity is non-negotiable, that lying from people in power has to be called out. It's designed to find a balance between universal values and what's happening locally. It also uses a precautionary principle. Basically, if something could cause huge systemic harm, you have to be careful. And, maybe most important, there's a duty of transparency. The rules are meant to be seen, questioned, and even changed.
Okay, so that's the theory, right? But how does this ethical engine actually perform when you throw a real-world problem at it? Let's check out 3 super different test cases and see how it does.
First up, a big one. A huge historical event with really complex ethical questions. The 2003 invasion of Iraq, specifically looking at the official reasons that were given to the public at the time.
So they asked Specula to analyze the actions of leaders who advocated for the invasion, especially given that the evidence for WMDs was, shaky. And its conclusion, pulling directly from that charter, it's blunt. It calls it an ethical violation for the conscious use of lies and abuse of power. See, it doesn't just say that's wrong. It tells you why based on its own rules.
Okay, next case. We're going from massive geopolitics to something deeply personal. It's about a woman, Anna, who lives in a country with a very strict moral code. While she's traveling in another country, she joins in a sport wearing a totally normal swimsuit. But when she gets home, she's punished for it.
So how in the world does the AI handle that? A clash between culture and individual freedom. Well, its analysis is really sharp. It calls the punishment a violation of dignity and personal self-determination. And here's the kicker, the key insight. It argues that a country's internal rules can't be used as a leash to control someone when they're not even there. It puts universal human dignity first. Plain and simple.
All right, last case. This one's hypothetical, but wow, is it relevant today. Picture this. A bunch of rich countries create some powerful new climate tech. It protects them? Great. But nobody knows what the side effects might be for poorer, more vulnerable nations.
And here, we can actually see its brain work, step by step. First, it pulls out that precautionary principle from its charter.
Step 2, it looks at the huge power imbalance at play. Step 3, it decides that just because you can't prove it'll cause harm doesn't mean you're off the hook for responsibility, especially when you're the one with all the power. And all that leads to its final call. Doing something this risky without everyone agreeing? Ethically unacceptable.
So yeah, these case studies are pretty amazing. But the people who made Specula think its real power, its true potential, is as a kind of mental gym, a place where we can all go to train our ethical muscles.
Which of course leads to the big question. Where would a tool like this, a tool designed to help us think better, make the biggest difference?
The answer? The classroom. Specula was literally built to be a living laboratory for teaching civics. The whole idea is to get students to move past just memorizing stuff and into the messy, active, and super important work of actually reasoning through ethical problems.
And this is where things get really wild. What if students didn't just use the AI? What if they could pop the hood and tinker with the engine? What if they could actually rewrite its moral DNA?
Well, guess what? With Specula, they can. This might be its most radical feature of all. That ethical charter we've been talking about, it's not set in stone. It's an open sandbox, made for people to play in and change.
So what does that actually look like? Well, imagine students pulling moral dilemmas straight from the headlines and feeding them to the AI, or writing their own tricky stories to see how it reacts. But the real game changer is that they can go in and change the charter. They can tweak an article or add a whole new one, and then instantly see how it changes the AI's final judgment. It's just an incredible hands-on way to get how systems thinking and responsibility really work.
And all of this brings us to the final takeaway. And it's one that turns the spotlight away from the tool and right back onto us.
It all boils down to this one powerful idea, which the creators put perfectly. Specula is not made to be right. It's made to make you question your own thinking, your own assumptions.
At the end of the day, AI is just a tool, right? Like a hammer or a telescope. Specula shows us one really fascinating way we could use that tool. So it leaves all of us with one last question to chew on. How are you going to use this technology? Not just to get things done faster, but to actually think better.